Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to The Weekend. Folks, we just narrowly avoided a government shutdown again. President Biden signed legislation just yesterday, partially funding the government until September. But we're actually not completely in the clear because Congress still has to reach a deal to fund the rest of the government by the end of next week. And those negotiations, they are set to be a much tougher lift. So we're going to get into Georgia in a second. But right now, we want to bring in Democratic Congressman Colin Allred of Texas. He just won the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate in his state and is here to talk all things Congress.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Good to see you, sir.
Yeah,
thanks, Joe.
Amazing. And thank you for getting up early with us today. Let's start. Well, first of all, let's start where I ended. You just clinched the Democratic nomination for Senate in Texas. I have talked to a number of operatives in Texas that say if there's anybody that can beat Ted Cruz, it's Colin Allred. So another rolling CR happening. It just feels like what is going on with the United States Congress, Republicans in Congress, and what is your pitch to voters as you are going around the state talking to them about just literally the inability to fund the things, the very basic things that the government is supposed to be doing?
Well, let's go back to the CR really quickly because Ted Cruz voted against it. He was one of a handful of senators who decided, yeah, you know what, I do want to shut down the government. In the midst of a war in Ukraine and a conflict in Gaza, with all the responsibilities we have, this is when he thinks is a good time. He also took down the border deal recently, and not on the policy, but on the politics. And I think there's just a lot of Texans who are just sick and tired of this. And that's what I hear all the time is that folks are tired of being embarrassed by their senator. And I tell them, you don't have to be stuck with them. You can get a new one. That's what this election is all about. I'm used to overcoming long odds. I was raised by a single mom in Dallas, was a public school teacher. I made it to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. Got elected to Congress by beating a 22-year incumbent Republican who nobody thought I could beat. I look forward to beating Ted Cruz in November.
You know what is funny, Congressman, is that you and Senator Cruz have a slightly different read on the electorate. I want to pull up something he posted on Twitter. He said, I'm supported by Democrats who say, look, we want a senator who fights for jobs, who fights for energy, who supports law enforcement, who supports border security. I'm curious, Congressman, if you have, one, met any of the Democrats in your state who say they are supporting Ted Cruz for that litany of reasons. And conversely, if you are talking to Republicans in your state who have expressed frustration with Senator Cruz.
Absolutely. Listen, it's amazing to me that at this stage of his career, Ted Cruz is trying to pretend like he has any crossover appeal or even cares about trying to cross over to get independents or Democrats on board with him. This is something that he's never shown any interest in before. And it's obviously an indication that he knows that he's going to be in a really tough race. And that's why he is now trying to show that he's got some kind of support that I know he doesn't have. Now, I do have support among Republicans in Texas. In fact, I got elected by folks in Dallas who voted for George W. Bush, who voted for Mitt Romney, folks who maybe still consider themselves to be Republicans, but feel like this version of the Republican Party doesn't represent their values. And so our coalition is one that's broad, that if you believe in accepting election results, if you believe in standing up to dictators, if you believe that the United States is still the last best hope for the world, then you're part of my coalition. And Ted Cruz has a shrinking one, one that I think it's clear he's trying to show something that's not really existing.
But it's still Texas, and Republicans are strong in Texas, as you know. In fact, you have the Tribune noting the fallout from Ken Paxton and the insurgency, if you will, of a harder right Republican base that is asserting itself across the state in reaction to Paxton and the fact that, the Speaker, for example, declined to stop the impeachment. And so there's punishments going on inside the party. There are punishments outside the party. How do you navigate in a state like Texas? We've watched other Democrats statewide try to climb that mountain. Yeah. And the mountain has said, not now. So what makes your race different this time? I mean, Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz, and, he's a good punching bag for folks to go after. But at the end of the day, there's a resonance with voters that still keeps him not just on the ballot, but in the office.
Yeah. Well, I actually think that what we're seeing is an internal civil war in Texas among the Republican Party. And it's going in the direction of the folks who I don't think reflect the mass majority of Texans, right? We're getting away from the George W. Bushes and the Rick Perrys and towards this extremely far right. I mean, we had some very, very conservative state legislators who were primaried to their right by folks who were running on stuff that Attila the Hun would have felt comfortable with, right? So, so let's be very clear: they're going way too far, and Ted Cruz is one of the avatars of that. He's been one of the leaders of that. But I'm a different candidate, and I'm a different problem for Senator Cruz. I've been the most bipartisan member of the entire Texas delegation. I work very hard at reaching across the aisle. I have real bona fides in terms of being supported in my last 2 elections by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce because I've been pro-business, for example. So it's going to be harder for them. But also, that's part of kind of the way I grew up and where I come from, is that I believe that we have to try to bring folks together around our shared values and our common values. And I'm a 4th-generation Texan. I was born and raised in Dallas, as I said. I went to school at Baylor. My family's from Brownsville. I know who we are as Texans, and it's not who Ted Cruz says we are. And that's what this election is going to be about. Not our past elections, but who's going to serve us for the next 6 years going forward.
Congressman, along those lines, I mean, it is true. Your record is extremely bipartisan. And in this climate, it seems, something a little bit of an anomaly to talk about bipartisan legislators, particularly when it comes to places like Texas. When we talk about the funding fight in Congress, one of the next big obstacles is going to be to get lawmakers to agree on funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And when I hear DHS funding, I hear border security bill, right back to where we've been for the last month and a half. What is going to need to happen in order to get an agreement to fund the Department of Homeland Security? Are you optimistic that a border security bill is going to come together?
Well, I certainly hope so. Listen, when we see these surges of migrants around the country, I think folks are starting experiencing that. But we've been feeling it in Texas very directly. And when I talk to our CBP officers, they'll tell you that they're experiencing a mental health crisis within the CBP among our Border Patrol agents because of the strain that they're being put under, because of the extra hours they're having to work, because of the things that they're seeing. And so we have to respond to that by supporting them. We need more agents. We need more immigration judges. We need more administrative staff. The president is right that we have to fix this asylum system. That was all in that Senate legislation that Ted Cruz and others took down. And there's probably no state hurt more by that than Texas. And we have so many folks who are tied into this in our state that we desperately need to get this done. So I hope that we don't play games with it, because when you play those games, you end up hurting Texans the most. And so to me, I hope we get it done. But I've been with this version of the House for in my 2nd year now of them being in the majority, that one where I can't predict anything. I don't know what's going to happen from day to day, from minute to minute, from hour to hour.
It's a rolling of the dice out here.
They don't know.